The Mayo Experience.
Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, Week 2, a rankings debate. Every position, hit the description of this video or of this podcast. Find out all the time codes when we talk about the certain positions, and all the updated rankings are in there as well. Those are going to change because obviously on a Tuesday evening, we do not have all the injury information. So let's say that Leonard Fournette plays. Guess what? TJ Yeldon, not ranked so highly anymore. Turns out that you can't edit this after the fact. I know I shouldn't be saying this because people should know this, but they don't know this, so I have to say it. Anyway, thank you all for watching. Give the episode a like, and we have a special guest on today's show. So in the comment section, this is going to be a $20 DK giveaway. You can get in a draw 20 DraftKings dollars if you leave your DraftKings handle after giving the episode a like. And in this section, leave the guest that you would like to see on the ranking show, because myself and Garion Thorne are here.
Hello.
Hi, and we're going to try to always be joined by a third person, and I would like to take suggestions on this.
That's true. I would even say don't make it obtainable.
Yeah, make it the most outrageous.
Living or dead.
So, I mean, I guess he's giving it away right now. Joining us from DirecTV, you can watch him from noon to 8 p.m. Eastern, wherever the hell that is on the West Coast. I don't know. I'm bad at math. It's James Coe. What's going on, buddy?
Hey, man. It's been a long time.
I don't think I've seen you, like, in person, or we've chatted since, like, the first League of Leagues draft.
Oh, my God. That was, what, three years ago?
No, it was
it
was the second League of Leagues draft, because you and Rank were both there.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, no, actually, I think that was the first one, man. And I think that was oh my goodness, it couldn't have been 4 years. Yeah, so about 3 years ago. That was a long time ago, man. Holy hell. That was in Vegas. That was great. That was a good time.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it'd be nice if we could do that every year. As it turned out, not super sustainable to do.
Yeah,
Right.
Probably not. Didn't you guys get like one of the biggest suites in the hotel?
Yeah, Seeley and I split the suite.
Yeah.
Half the people aren't even in the league anymore. Anyway, let's get into these rankings again. Give the episode a like, and then you leave your DraftKings handle in the comments section, and then a guest that you would like to see on the show. Make it as crazy as possible. And it can't be Cust, because Cust is on the Thursday show. Tomorrow I have Rick Gaiman on for the DraftKings breakdown. Thursday, Feinberg and Cust will be on. Hopefully there's no video failure this time.
That'd be nice.
It was just in podcast version last week. The podcast and video will be back Friday. There'll be a DK ownership and injury and rankings adjustment. Then, of course, Gary and you and I and the Cust are live Sunday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern time, right here on the DraftKings YouTube channel. The first hour will be available on iTunes and Stitcher and all that fun as well. So sub to it all, like it all, and give us a break here. The more views we get, the more we're going to be able to do.
It's true. And we're already doing quite a bit. That's a lot of content you just named. So.
And that's not even that. We got MMA, we got
football.
golf.
I know.
We got a lot going
Wow.
on. Yeah, see? I mean, tell us what's going on at DirecTV, by the way, because, like, in Canada, we don't get DirecTV, but I can find, like, an illegal stream. So should I be watching this 8 hours of content?
I don't even know how to answer that, because yes, you should be watching DirecTV, and no to the other parts. No, look, I'm a fantasy analyst for a DirecTV show. It's called Fantasy Zone. It's got a great group of a cast of characters, man. Kay Adams leads the hosting and all that stuff out on the East Coast. We split it up. We got East Coast coverage. We got West Coast coverage. Kay Adams leads the show on the East Coast, and then we kind of work in our West Coast guys. It's myself and Dan Hellie, who's also an NFL Network person. I should say I'm a former NFL Network person, but yeah, it's a great cast, man. John Hansen, the fantasy guru, is the lead fantasy analyst. We've got a doctor. We actually have a Super Bowl winning offensive lineman turned doctor, Dr. Mark Addict, who is an analyst for our show as well, and the great Brian Westbrook. Remember Brian Westbrook with the Eagles, man? Pass
Big Brian Westbrook guy.
I loved Brian Westbrook back in the day. But yeah, he's a X's and O's analyst for us as well. It's a lot of football, and it's a great team. And basically, the bottom line is, if you're catching this show stateside, it's basically, you should be familiar with Red Zone. Red Zone, you go game to game. You get some highlights, you get analysis. But this show, Fantasy Zone, it's basically Red Zone, but with just a complete and utter focus on fantasy. So to me, it's a great show. We were talking a little bit before we got on, like, how was it week one? It was so easy, man, because honestly, this is the way that if you're a fantasy enthusiast, you love watching football this way. It's all the scores, it's all the big plays, and you get instant fantasy analysis as well. So there you go.
All right, like I said, since it's not available in Canada, where I am, I will illegally stream that. So thanks for the plug, Jay. That's gonna be great. I'll tune into that. All right, let's get into the running back rankings. Full point PPR. That's how I do my rankings. Brian Westbrook, the king of full point PPR.
Oh, yeah.
Before people could figure out PPR scoring, he was the man with this. Okay, guys that I have ranked in right now as if they're gonna play. Of course, this could change. Why you need to hit the rankings for the updates later in the week. Marlon Mack I have is in. Wayne Gallman in. Sony Michel in. Devonta Freeman in. Out. Le'Veon Bell, Leonard Fournette, and Kenneth Dixon. Obviously Aaron Jones and that awful Mark Ingram are both suspended. Because they deserve to be. Mark Ingram didn't even do anything. He's just in worse place for so long.
They just finally
he
figured it out.
got suspended, yeah.
Sure.
So the top 10 in rankings for this week. Number 1 is going to be the guy that we watched on Monday night, Todd Gurley. Number 2 is Alvin Kamara, Melvin Gordon, Christian McCaffrey, James Conner. He's from the future. Wait, he's not from the future. The Terminator's from the future to get James Conner. It's close enough. Ezekiel Elliott, David Johnson, Dalvin Cook, Kareem Hunt, and Jordan Howard. Garion, I'll go to you first. Anything surprise you from that top 10?
I don't think anything's necessarily surprising. I mean, Melvin Gordon at 3.
Bills, man! What do you think, he's going to get yanked because they're going to be up by 8,000 points like Alex Collins did?
No, and again, we know Gordon has a certain level of volume that's generally unmatched in other circles of the NFL, although Austin Eckler did get a little bit of run in that game, maybe more run than we've seen the last couple years.
They were playing on the field at the same time a lot of the time.
A lot of teams seem to be doing that. Offensive coordinators getting a little bit smarter about how they want to utilize their weapons. Although, then the Patriots come out and use James Devlin for like 70% of their plays, so who even knows anymore. But, do we really just think the Bills are going to be this sieve of a defense that allows 35, 40 points a week? Like,
potentially so, yes.
Okay.
Especially because they're playing an offense that's way better this week.
Yeah. They did just lose another offensive lineman, though, the Chargers.
Okay, they're playing the Bills.
Look,
the Bills stink. Watch the Bills win this stupid game, too. This is classic Bills like trap spot where everyone's off the Bills. They'll be like 9-point dogs at home, and then they'll just outright win.
Probably not going to happen.
Probably not going to happen. But I think Melvin Gordon's so safe.
Yeah, no, I'm not really arguing the point. I'm curious how we'll be treating Buffalo if it's going to be the exact same philosophy
put it this way,
6 weeks from now.
In a neutral matchup, if we were just randomly doing rankings at running back, Melvin Gordon would probably
Top
be 5 or
6 or
6
7,
anyway.
yeah. No,
I think it's like Connor and McCaffrey that I thought would generate more like, oh, really?
I think Connor, again, we talked about this going into
you were way more right
one.
on Connor than I was.
I coined this a lot. This is the Tecmo theory. I don't think about running backs for Pittsburgh by their individual names. They are Pittsburgh RB. And Pittsburgh RB should always be a top 5 running back because they get utilized. Connor was the only guy who got every single snap or every single touch in the running back share. I mean, it says a lot about the depth they have.
Snap, you're right.
Yeah, he did, yeah. And, I mean, the only time that he wasn't on the field in that game, he played 92% of the snaps, tied with Zeke for the most of any running back, is when they played 5 wide receiver sets.
Exactly. And that's the thing. It's like when your backup running back is not even sure if he's a running back or a tight end, and he's a rookie, you're probably going to continue to get those shares.
And Cuss started him at tight end.
Yeah, that's an entirely different conversation. But no, I'm fine with James Conner as a top 5 running back. I think that's what he is until Le'Veon Bell comes back because he's not James Conner. He's Pittsburgh RB.
James, what do you see inside this top 10 that confuses you a little bit? Because my rankings are known to be, I was going to say wonky, but we can just say it bad.
For me, I think Christian McCaffrey at 4 feels rich. I understand that Atlanta suffered 2 serious injuries to coverage guys in their defense. So certainly that can open up a lot of space. I think I'll tell you another thing that actually bodes well for Christian McCaffrey, and I know I'm arguing against myself here, but the fact that Greg Olsen is going to be missing time as well. People got to remember he was a top 10 fantasy running back. Christian McCaffrey was when Greg Olsen went down. All right, now that being said, at four, that seems awfully high. You've got guys like David Johnson, Dalvin Cook, Kareem Hunt, Jordan Howard below him, which I don't know, just to me just doesn't feel right. And again, I think he's in a pretty good spot. Christian McCaffrey is against the Falcons that again are going to be pretty depleted in terms of coverage guys, but man, that seems awfully high for CMC.
I would say to pick up on what James is saying, like if we do David Johnson versus Christian McCaffrey
this week,
even this week, it can't be a worse game script for David Johnson. Like I can't foresee a situation where the Cardinals have the ball less than 22 minutes. That seems irrational. So we're talking about someone who still brought back decent return considering his offense was
I have him number 7. It's not like I'm saying bench David
I understand
Johnson.
that, but just we're talking about two guys you're going to start anyway. So
Sure.
this is really semantics.
Yeah.
But I think they're very similar. Obviously, the Falcons had already struggled with containing pass-catching running backs before they lost two of their best defenders at guarding pass-catching running backs.
And that's where I'm going with this. And James hit on it too. Without Greg Olsen around, I mean, he was one of the few. Like I listed all the running backs that played more than 70% of their team shares. And David Johnson
would have been there if the game hadn't gotten ridiculous.
Absolutely. Chase Edmonds didn't get a snap until the fourth quarter and when the game was completely out of hand. But with McCaffrey, he was playing 86% of the snaps anyway. This game is going to probably be a shootout. And if it's not, then McCaffrey's still going to end up with close to 20 touches. But in this type of game where they struggle against pass-catching running backs, this could be 10 catches. That's a free 10 points.
But I will say, if there's an area of the Rams' defense that is poor, and we saw this
it's
time and time
core.
again. It's the linebacking core. And it's not even just that. It's their corners are so good, they're going to funnel targets to the tight ends and the running backs.
Hold on.
Okay.
Hold on.
Okay. You're a big Ricky Seals-Jones fan this week.
Sam Bradford just might be disastrous.
Yeah, but I think that benefits David Johnson. David Johnson leads all receivers in red zone targets, and he's a running back.
Yeah, but you actually have to be complete for them to do anything. That's inherently the problem with Sam Bradford.
I guess I will say, if you asked me who's going to score more points this weekend, the Panthers or the Cardinals, I'd have to concede it's the Panthers.
No, but Cam is probably stealing touchdowns in that base.
Yeah.
That's where the issue comes in with the upside of McCaffrey. I'm enamored with it, though. We spent way too much time on a guy that's...
You're starting both.
You're starting both.
Fine, yeah.
Ko, I did want to ask you about Jordan Howard, though. Do you think this involvement in the receiving game was a one-week aberration and then it kind of switches back? Or do you think that he could average, let's say he had 5 catches week 1. He's not going to average 5 catches a game and end up with 80 receptions. But let's say he ends up with 5 targets a game. And he has that potential to do that. Do you think that's something that could be sustainable?
It's so crazy. If anyone has followed me on Twitter or my old podcast or even the television show back in the day too, I am not a big Jordan Howard guy. But I got to be honest with you, I don't know what kind of magic voodoo they put on him this offseason, but he absolutely looks like the real deal catching the football. Jordan Howard was one of the absolute worst pass catchers at the running back. He's just one of the worst pass catchers, period. I think offensive linemen had better hands than Jordan Howard, but all of a sudden, he looks very capable out of the backfield. And I don't know what it is, but he looks confident too, catching that ball. So, you know what, man? I am going to actually say it's a sustainable figure. I do think that he will get 4 to 5 targets each and every game. And I do think that he's going to pull down, I don't know, let's say 70% of those catches. At that point, this guy becomes an absolute stud in terms of PPR scoring. So, yeah, I think he can maintain it. And you got him as a top 10, fantasy running back this week. I absolutely can see him sustaining that throughout the year.
All right, let's go 11 to 20. Saquon Barkley comes in at number 11. Probably not going to break off like a 69-yard run. Nice.
I think I would still have him above Jordan Howard, though. I love Jordan Howard. We have a standing bet.
Can you let me read the fucking list?
Okay, go ahead.
Gentleman Joe Mixon, TJ Yeldon. Obviously, with no Fournette playing, I have Yeldon against the Patriots at number 13. Lamar Miller, number 14. Shady at 15. Drake, AP, Dion Lewis, Alex Collins, and Jay Ajayi comes in at number 20. Ko, we'll go to you because Garion wants to interrupt me, and you were just sitting there very nicely. Is Barkley too low on this list against Dallas?
I think so. It feels like it might be a game script where, again, it's kind of, look, Dallas wants to run the rock a lot, and they want to drain clock. When they took on a Carolina team that basically wants to do something similar, we got what we got in week 1. I think in week 2, I think the Giants want to play a little bit more up-tempo. I got to be honest with you, man. I'm scared of Zeke. I know you got him at 6, and that's fine, and certainly he will see a lot of volume, but I honestly think he got lucky last week. If Carolina had put up, another extra 10 points, which they absolutely could have the way the game was going, would Zeke have seen that touchdown at the end? Would he have been utilized as much as he was? I'm not 100% sure. The Giants, you got to keep in mind, they just took on literally one of the best defenses in the NFL, if not the best defense in the NFL, and they fared okay. I thought Odell Beckham Jr. actually played really, really well. He got loose. It just was a matter that Eli couldn't get him the ball. So if Eli does get Odell involved, if this offense does start clicking again against a team that is, decent defensively, maybe, possibly, but not that great, I think we're going to see a whole hell of a lot of Saquon Barkley as they try to bleed out the clock. And again, no matter what the game script is, Saquon's going to get some work. So I think 11 is a little bit low. I probably still have him as a top 5 or 6 guy, just kind of all things considered, but certainly not with that, not outside the realm of possibility.
I think I would have him right after Dalvin Cook. I would have him ahead of Hunt and ahead
Dalvin
of
Cook
Howard.
looks so good.
He did. He looked really good. And that Packers run defense looked poor. And I think that has to be considered when we talk about how good Jordan Howard looked. It might have been a little bit matchup dependent. And again, I like Jordan Howard.
Yeah, you liked him. I was with Co. I was way down on Jordan Howard coming into the season.
I think I just accepted him for his deficiencies because I still thought, despite the fact...
That's very nice of
I
you.
know, right? But I think that where he wasn't expected to catch passes, I was at least thinking he's going to see 17 to 20 carries a game. He'll get all of the goal line work. There's still value to that. And if he's going to add this element to his game, fantastic. He does become a fringe RB1 again on a week-to-week basis. But when you line him up directly with Barkley, I think there's less of a fight for touches in that Giants backfield than there is in the Bears backfield. And I also think that if we're saying Jordan Howard is 5 targets is a better expectation than 5 catches. I mean, Barkley had 6 targets. He just only happened to catch 2. So
here's the one thing the reason that I have him ranked at 11 instead of inside the top 5, because going into the preseason and my pre-draft rankings, I had Barkley ahead of Zeke, and for the rest of the season, I would rather have Barkley than Zeke. But I was kind of impressed with Dallas's run defense. I thought it was the one part of their team that actually looked quite good.
But again, and this is why it's so hard.
They couldn't control Cam, but that's not going to be a thing this week. Eli's not hitting the outside and not
he might have been slow playing us for the last decade and a half. That again might be a situation where matchup maybe makes us think too much of a particular unit. I mean, that Carolina offensive line losing Darrell Williams again.
Is nuts.
I didn't really expect much from him this season. I still don't think McCaffrey can run between the tackles.
But also, let's not pretend like the Giants' offensive line is like top notch.
But they did, at the very least, they went out and signed Solder. They tried.
Yeah, they went from like the worst line to maybe
20th?
the 21st best line.
That's fine, but I think the Panthers might, if this Williams thing, he's probably going to go on the IR. So maybe he comes back at some point, but they could be a bottom 5 unit in the league for run blocking. That's not out of the question. This was an offensive line that was already bad, and they just lost easily their best offensive lineman. So I think that maybe we could be overestimating the power of Dallas's D. Not that Sean Lee's healthy. That's a big thing too. Like he's not quite Luke Kuechly, but when it comes to Dallas's defense, he is such a huge part of that. So you can't overstate that, but I think I would much rather have Barkley than Howard this week.
Co, what do you make of TJ Yeldon at 13 against the Patriots? Do you worry that Corey Grant might actually play a bit of a role this week? Because as soon as Fournette went down against the Giants, it was all Yeldon all the time, and this is just purely a volume play. Plus, as we saw last season, that the efficiency in the running game for Jacksonville didn't change when it was either Fournette in or Yeldon in. When Fournette missed those games, Yeldon was great. Not great, but like fantasy great.
Yeah, I would say that saying he was great is a bit of an overstatement. But I think for me, TJ Yeldon is a dime a dozen player. No offense, I guess, really, but having him at 13 seems awfully high. Look, I think he's fine. I don't think he's going to get quite the burn that he got here in week 1 because, quite frankly, it just doesn't make a whole hell of a lot of sense. You mentioned Corey Grant. I thought he was a really good player last year. And to me, it would just be foolish, I think, for them to run TJ Yeldon into the ground, 20, 30 touches. Plus, again, we're not 100% sure, Leonard Fournette is going to be out. And, if he tries to give it a go, how much does Leonard Fournette play? How much does Yeldon play? How much does Grant play? And plus, we've got an entire week now to game plan. when a guy goes out with injury mid-game, I don't give that much credence into the workload when we see a player go out with injury, because basically it just means that another backup player has not had time to either learn the play sheet, or the coaching staff has not had the time clearly to get somebody up to speed. So I would imagine that the coaching staff there in Jacksonville will try to get Corey Grant up to speed. They'll figure out a couple more packages to get him involved as well. I think TJ Yeldon is maybe a top 25 guy. At 13, absolutely no way.
All right, so my thinking behind this is maybe he doesn't get 25-30 and just assume the Fournette role. But these rankings are as if Fournette is not playing whatsoever. And we can talk about if Fournette plays, how that changes everything, or maybe that's something we can update on Friday during the injury update. But this is an excellent offensive line going up against the Patriots defense, which was just gashed by Lamar Miller, running behind an awful offensive line. I think that they're going to have a lot of success running the ball, whether it's Yeldon, whether it is Grant. I think that it's at least going to be, let's say, at worst, 65-35 split between the two. And if that gets him to 20 touches against this Patriots defense, and he's the one who's near the goal line, which I do think that he is, this is the value that I see for him.
And something that we talked a lot about in the season-long shows, the original draft rankings, is for all the top-end running back talent we do have in this league, and that's a list that might stretch to 11 or 12 running backs, there's a large gap between that tier of running back and the next tier of running back.
It's like a Tim list?
There's a big gap. Yeah, because you look behind TJ Yeldon on this list. Lamar Miller is probably the most complete running back after Yeldon, and that's kind of a scary statement to make, because yes, he had a good game in week 1, but there's a bad offensive line. He's never been an efficient guy since he was traded to Houston. Is involved in the passing game though, and you can't overstate that. But
Yeldon is too.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's where if I start looking at this list and going, okay, who am I much more comfortable with than TJ Yeldon? LaShawn McCoy is in a terrible offense, and they got nowhere close to the red zone in that contest.
And they instead played like Marcus Murphy.
There was just some weird stuff going on.
They got down by so much. It was just like, screw it.
But even the fact that in the first half they weren't even throwing McCoy the ball, like it just seemed really strange.
Well,
but
because
anyway,
it's Nate Peterman. He can't complete a pass.
That's also fair. But Kenyon Drake is in timeshare, going into what is probably not an ideal matchup against a Jets team that looked pretty good. Adrian Peterson, I think, is strangely super viable this week.
This is kind of weird. So, Co, would you say that Adrian Peterson is a must-play, or is this going to be the exact same thing that happened last year, that after he has his good game, everyone's all in on AP, and then he sucks?
You know, the thing with Adrian Peterson is that he is by far the most dependent on game script. So if the Redskins can stay, within a touchdown, then yeah, AP's going to get work. And listen, they're playing at home against the Colts. The Colts defense is still a work in progress, and that's a euphemism, man. But I think he's going to get some work. I think he'll get play. Chris Thompson obviously still looks like the better running back, the more capable running back in that Jay Gruden offense. But I will give Jay Gruden this, man. He was primarily a outside zone running scheme guy. And if that's the case, I definitely don't think Adrian Peterson would have been signed there. He definitely would not have been a great fit there. But we saw him the last 6 weeks of the season incorporate more power running, more gap scheme. And when he's out there and he uses those schemes, that's where Adrian Peterson, can do well. This is when the quarterback is going to be under center primarily. So, yeah, I think they can exert their force against the Colts defensive front that is not that great, So, yeah, I would imagine, them to be a little bit more conservative, especially early in the season. They got a brand new quarterback. They got a lot of new pieces. They're still trying to get everybody involved. So, yeah, I think AP here in week 2 absolutely is a strong play.
And it's the Colts defense just looked brutal.
Yeah, I think that Adrian Peterson, he's kind of like a guy at a poker table who has an obvious tell. Like, he is one of the easiest running backs to project on a week-to-week basis. You just have to trust your own assessment of what the game script is going to be, like Co was saying. You go back to last season, when he was able to get 20-plus carries, he's going to do something with it. It might not be the most efficient line in the world, but for fantasy purposes, we don't care. He's just going to have the volume.
And he's going to get those
all the goal line touches, everything.
And that's why Thompson ends up down at number 23. Thompson's still a good play, but
yeah. Well,
he needs to.
Alex Smith, of every single quarterback who started a game this week, had the lowest ADOT, and it wasn't even particularly close. It was down at like 3.6 yards per attempt, which is like if someone was doing a parody of Alex Smith, that's how you would kind of come to that number, but that's what he was in week 1. And I feel like that's a real favorable number for Chris Thompson, who actually can run routes. So it's not like he needs the short passes necessarily, but I think they're going to be like besties. I think both these guys can definitely be top 25 running backs.
Were you surprised that Kenyon Drake played 71% of the snaps for Miami?
Not really, no. Look, Gore looked good, but I think my takeaway from that game, and I don't really know if you can take anything away from that game. It's just, how do you ever really duplicate that particular game script? There was 2 halftimes in that game, and they were 2 hours long. But I thought the offensive line looked good, and it probably should. They've invested a lot of high leverage draft picks and a lot of money into that offensive line, and Gore was getting some massive holes. But I still think that Drake is clearly the more talented of the two, and I think that at the end of the day, regardless of how Gore performs, and it's early in the season too, this is the freshest his 39,000-year-old legs are going to be for the entirety of the season, he is more so a representation of like how to be an NFL player. They're really trying to sell this like we're classing up our locker room with winners mentality, and that's what he and Amendola are. But I think Amendola has more to give at this point in the season until he gets concussed. So no, I think Drake is going to continue to see around 70% of the snaps.
Alex Collins, people are like losing their minds about it. I do a Monday waiver wire show with Jake Seeley, 9 a.m. Eastern time on the DraftKings YouTube channel. If you're curious, people in that chat were like, do I drop Alex Collins? He sucks.
I don't really look. It's 1 week, man. That would be a crazy overreaction. I think he's still a great player. Kenneth Dixon's hurt now, so he's going to be getting a lot of volume. At the end of the day, Coach Harbaugh has figured out a way to generate a running game. It doesn't matter who he's got back there. It doesn't matter if 2/5 of his offensive line is hurt or retires before the start of the season. Who cares? It doesn't matter. Jim Harbaugh is going to figure out some kind of way to get these guys involved and get them productive on the ground. So, yeah, look, Alex Collins, I think, is still a fine player. He's working with a great coach. I still trust him. I would still run him out there absolutely as an RB2 or flex play.
All right, let's run very quickly 21 through 40 because this is where a lot of the decisions are actually going to be made this week of who you start in your flex at running back 2, depending on how good or crappy your team is. Carlos Hyde comes in at number 21. Devonta Freeman, I'm still just a bit pensive and playing Carolina. He's knee injury and a really bad matchup, 22. He's still the Atlanta one I would trust unless he doesn't play, obviously. Then Devin Coleman would bump up. Thompson, Sex, Rex, Burkhead, Marshawn Lynch, Peyton Barber, Alfred Morris, Derrick Henry, Bilal Powell, James White, into Jamal Williams, Royce Freeman, Nyheim Hines, who I have the highest ranked Indy running back this week just because of the passing game prowess, Isaiah Crowell, Austin Eckler, Philip Lindsay, Darren Sproles, Rocket Richard, Chris Carson, and Frank Gore. There's a lot of like timeshares in this mix. There's a lot of pass catching running backs. Yeah. I guess the one that I'll start with first is I like Morris more than I like Breida this week, just because I like the Niners matchup against the Lions. We just saw the Jets run all over them. I don't know if the Jets, as one person on my Twitter timeline pointed out, that they're going to go 19-0, they're the greatest team of all time, and they'll never lose again. That man's name was Tim Andercust. You can hear him on Thursday when he probably went through 8 pairs. I think he went through like 8 pairs of pants last night during that game. Although he did make a 10-1 bet that Darnold wouldn't throw a pick in the first 10 passes, which was pretty good. So he lost money on the game somehow, but I think he's okay with that. But Crowell gashed them, Powell gashed them. I don't see a reason why. I know he put the ball on the ground on the goal line and they split touches, but if it's going to be a run-heavy game script, I feel like that favors Alfred Morris in this matchup.
Sure, but I do think that both are viable as flex plays this week. Sure. Like you said, I think the Lions
if you told me one gets a touchdown or a goal line touchdown,
it has to be more.
That's why he's high.
Yeah, it's at this point, it's almost like choosing between a team that actually rolls out 2 tight ends. You just have to take the one who gets more goal line work.
All right, so in that mix of those 20 guys, are there guys that seem a bit too high, a bit too low in your mind?
Yeah, man, I think you've got Royce Freeman. That's just mad disrespect, honestly, at 32.
What do you want me to do with the guy? He plays 40% of the snaps, and Philip Lindsay is like the guy now.
I love Philip Lindsay.
I don't know. Like, do I really want to take a guy who's like in the top part of a timeshare but can't even get to 50% of the snaps?
Yeah, I think that's just kind of how the game kind of rolled itself out. It felt even though it wasn't a super high scoring game, it felt like a more up and down type of game because of all the turnovers. But look, Royce Freeman at the end of the day, I thought looked really good, especially in the second half. I think it's going to still be, 50-50 somewhat. We're talking about between Royce Freeman and Philip Lindsay. By the way, I went back and watched all the Lindsay tape, and I love the kid, man. He looks absolutely fantastic.
Well, hold on 1 second with this. Like, the way that we're going about it, it could be 50-50 between Lindsay and Freeman as it pertains to, like, carries, but Devonta Booker still played 20% or 25% of the snaps, too. He's just... The path to him having like monster games is really tough. And I agree that he could be good. He was the guy in when they were up and they were closing the game. He was getting like a lot of the goal line work when they got down there. But I feel like he has substantial downside too. And that's my problem with him, James.
Yeah, no, I totally, completely understand that. But that being said, they are taking on the Oakland Raiders defense that got absolutely hammered, right? So I think the matchup is favorable. I still think the workload is still pretty viable, right? So we're talking, anywhere between 15 to 20 touches. Some of these other guys that, that are on this list ahead of them, I don't necessarily know if they get 15 or 20 touches. So, for example, like, you have Nyheim Hines right behind him, which is just like, gee whiz, man. Like Royce Freeman or Nyheim Hines. Give me Royce 11 out of 10 times. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like 32 for him is pretty low. Again, despite the fact that, he didn't get to 50% snap share in week one, I'm not that concerned about it. I do think against a Raiders team where the Broncos should be up for most of that game, he's probably going to get a good chunk of the carry. So, great matchup. I still believe in the talent, and I still believe in the overall volume for him as well.
I think that
I love Hines, by the way.
Do you love Hines?
I do. I just Indy's defense is so bad, and it's very like when you just look when you watch that game. And I watch a weird amount of that game.
Okay. Well, you had the Bengals, didn't you?
No, I had the Colts in that game. That's why I was watching it, and then stupid Jack Doyle fumbled.
Yeah.
It was game over. However, every time, like 2-minute drill, when they got down, when they needed to speed up the offense and play no huddle, Hines was on the field. You know what Andrew Luck loved doing? Just throwing it to him 3 yards. Like, the way that the Raiders used Rocket Richard on the Monday Nighter is the way that Indy used Hines.
Right.
So I think PPR-wise, that he's very good. I would not touch him in the standard.
Sure.
But for like a floor player, I think he's like a better version of Theo Riddick.
Well,
in terms of fantasy,
there's a
not
lot
really.
of running backs there now, so I can understand that. I would say, to back up what James was saying, I am with you. I think it's worth reacting to what happened.
You know what? I got yelled at for ranking fucking Royce Freeman too low last week. Everyone bullied me. I changed my ranking. And you know what? I was right.
You were. I'm not saying you weren't. But I am saying
bullied,
you can
Garion.
react.
I got cyber bullied.
Oh, that's not fair.
Cyber
People should
bullied.
watch PSAs.
By Jake.
I think I would actually have him more in the Peyton Barber, Alfred Morris, Derrick Henry tier, which I know is not a massive stretch up, but at least it puts him more in sort of flex consideration than RB32 would. Because I do look at James White, Bilal Powell.
What's wrong with those guys in a PPR?
There's nothing wrong with them in a PPR necessarily, but I think if we're disregarding someone because they're in a clear timeshare situation, you've just taken two guys who are in the lesser half of the timeshare.
Sure.
Where I think Royce Freeman could definitely just... He
could be.
If I had to guess who would finish with more touches in week 2 after basically splitting them even in week 1, I would say that I would still lean Royce Freeman like 65-35 over Philip Lindsay. So I think, again, I'm not saying put him inside your top 25.
No, you're saying rank him at number 1. Yeah. I hear you loud and clear.
Make
That's
a new
wrong. I
under
would
worst
not do
place,
that.
make a best place list, and put him there. I think he's like, I would have him ahead of Derrick Henry. I would have him as 20.
Okay, you know what? That's a very fair argument, but I just don't know how that's going to shake down week to week. I think that there is potential for, hey, this week, let's give Derrick Henry 25 touches.
To be fair to Derrick Henry, there was a phantom holding call that took back a 60-yard Derrick Henry
Same thing
touchdown.
happened to Chris Carson in that Denver game, too. Stupid Brandon Marshall screwing me. But anyway, the difference between Powell and White, and even Hines as a part of this discussion with Royce Freeman, is that although those guys might be on the lesser end of their timeshare and they might get fewer touches, their touches for PPR purposes are far more valuable than Royce Freeman touches. Because I'll take the targets over the potential for goal line touches, which Freeman might get, he might not get. We don't know. We know James White's catching passes. We know Powell's catching passes. We know Hines is catching passes. The upside clearly rests with Royce Freeman. I will not deny that. But I like my floor guys once we get into this range, and I think that there is when we talk about these guys, everyone just wants to talk about their upside, and I can understand that. But I think you have to factor in the downside. What do you make of Derrick Henry, Co?
It was a confusing game. Clearly, I don't know how much we can take away from that game because it was just so weird. You had it stretched on into eternity. They may still, in an alternate universe, still be playing that game right now as we speak.
No, the Dolphins won it. No one can take that away from them. 1-0.
1-0, baby. Let's go. And so I'm not sure what to take of it. Dion Lewis obviously dominated the second half in terms of touches, snaps, all those types of things. So it's awfully tough. My whole thing with the Titans right now is that they still have a top 5 offensive line in the NFL.
They might not, though. They might have lost both those tackles. We don't really know.
Is that right? I didn't actually check up on their injuries, actually.
Yeah, well,
one's maybe I'm speaking out of turn.
Taylor Lewan's concussed.
Yeah,
he's
concussed, so it depends on whether the Titans want to or not telling the truth. And if that's the case, then he might play, he might not play. Who knows? But these concussion things are a bit wonky.
Well, you got to think
true. Obviously I'd have to check on the status of Lewan and Conklin. If you're right, if those two guys are out, that's a problem. But if they're in, I still think they have one of the top 5 offensive lines in the NFL. And you would think, again, just with how big and nasty they are, that would favor somebody like Derrick Henry. But look, Dion Lewis is a fantastic player. Where you have him, at 18 right now, top 20, absolutely, 100%, totally agree with that. Derrick Henry right now seems to be as crazy as it is. This is 2018 for you, man. As crazy as it is, a big, powerful, huge athlete is the more volatile play at the running back position in PPR. It's just so crazy that is the NFL world that we live in today. But it's true, and I agree with you. I think he is quite a volatile play there in Tennessee because the other thing is, who the hell's going to be their quarterback?
Oh, Blaine
What is their offense going to look like? I have no idea what their offense is going to look like. I have no idea what kind of pace of play that. I know Matt LaFleur wants to play fast, but can they? And so, there's just too many question marks going into week 2.
Yeah, I think that if Gabbard is going to be the quarterback, you have to expect a game script where they're losing, and I think it's pretty obvious that if they're losing...
How dare you disrespect Gabbard? He replaced Colin Kaepernick. That's why Kaepernick didn't play.
That's true.
That's what people on the internet with MAGA hats tell me.
But I think that if they're down, we just have to expect that Dion Lewis is going to be the one who sees the majority of the snaps in this game. So
yeah, I agree.
It's just
that's why he's above
also.
Me. All right,
if we're going to play the recency bias game, I told people Derrick Henry would suck, and I'm obviously right after 1 week.
Yeah, and I'm right forever, and if I'm wrong, I'll just amend what I said, and that was just fake news. Don't worry about that.
Exactly.
A lot of victory laps on Twitter week 1 about how people are going to do for the season. I told you
the
so.
The Jay Ajayi one was the most fun.
Well, that one's... Okay, do you want to...
He's properly ranked.
He needs to score a touchdown to be viable.
Here's the thing.
Though.
If you're playing in a season-long format, probably try and sell him. That would be my advice. But at the same time, if you have him and they're going into a great matchup, he's a top 20 running back.
All right, just very quick.
I completely and utterly disagree.
Really?
I think Jay Ajayi, again, he is appropriately ranked in the top 20. But here's the thing. You drafted him as an RB2. He's an ideal RB2 because literally you will get weeks like this where he pops off as a top 5 running back. He is the lead running back in a great offense, and all the advanced metrics that we got in terms of next-gen stats tell me that this guy was an extremely elusive player for the Philadelphia Eagles last year. So he's a lead back in a great offense. I don't know why we continue to discount this guy as if he doesn't have at least the ingredients to be a top 10 running back at season's close. So I think that's within the range of possibilities. And yet, despite that, we've drafted him as an RB2. I love that. I love the fact that he's my second RB and still has top 10 potential. I would never move that in a million years.
I think he's also got RB 37, RB 40 potential every other week.
Oh, no way.
That's the thing.
It's the Royce Freeman conundrum that we just talked about.
I do not dispute anything you just said in the sense that he's a very talented running back. That offensive line, when healthy, is fantastic. That offense, when also healthy in general, projects to be one of the best in the NFL. We're talking about a team that just led the NFL in points per game, but Doug Peterson just had his coaching philosophy validated with a Super Bowl ring, and that coaching philosophy is the correct philosophy in 2018. use multiple running backs, keep fresh legs in there, get guys with various skill sets. I mean, before Jay Ajayi got his second touch of the game, we saw all 4 Eagle running backs on the field. He only got 40% of the share load with Darren Sproles.
He played a similar amount of snaps as Darren Sproles, who was
and
the
he
one
scored
who was
on both his red zone carries. He only had 2.
And Darren Sproles was actually on Ajayi's second touchdown. It was after Darren Sproles got the first red zone touch. And James Coe was taken off by airplane to go.
Open the gates of hell.
Yeah, I mean, he's furious about this Jay Ajayi thing. No, I'm with you, Gary. And that's why I rank him, I'll probably just rank him at 20 every week. Some weeks he's going to be really good.
Yeah.
Some weeks he's going to be really bad. But
he's going to average out to RB20.
Yeah, and that's not a player that I love, and I think that I'm with you. But, Coe, you think that he could sustain himself as a potentially high-end number 2 running back?
Yeah, no doubt about it to me. Again, you talk about mixing in guys. Look, he got 1 snap in the first quarter. Whether that was injury or whether that was, hey, we're just trying to keep this guy, I don't know. But the bottom line was the last 3 quarters, he absolutely dominated the snaps. He dominated the touches. And to me, I think, and if you listen to Peterson talk as well, I think he realizes Jay Ajayi is my best running back. I've got to get this guy more involved. And I like Corey Clement. I like, Darren Sproles. But Darren Sproles at this point in his career, what is he, like 47 years old? He's coming off of like 17 season-ending surgeries. It's like he has clearly lost a step. He's not the same Darren Sproles that we have come to know and love. Jay Ajayi, to me, again, is that explosive running back that this offense, they sorely need explosive players because right now they don't have that many of them. And Jay Ajayi is one of the few guys that they have.
I just think we've seen time and time again. I mean, this is the 33rd regular season game that Doug Peterson has been the head coach of the Eagles, and twice has a running back exceeded 20 carries. And both those guys, for some reason, were Ryan Matthews. And that was very early on in his tenure. And even going back to last year, Jay Ajayi just scored 2 touchdowns. We talk about how he probably needs to score a touchdown to be a top 10 running back because he's just not going to have the volume to do it. We're coming off a season where the NFL leader in rushing touchdowns was 13. It was Todd Gurley with 13. We're not talking about Sean Alexander. We're not talking about LT 10 years ago scoring 20, 22, 28 touchdowns in a season.
I mean, you could use that argument both for and against him, too.
But I'm just saying, if he needs touchdowns, this is not the NFL where workhorse running backs score a touchdown every week because they're getting 20 carries. I just don't think it's a place where he's set to thrive. And again, it's not against him. I just hate the situation he's in.
Okay, one-word answers from you guys. Garion, we'll start with you. Rashad Penny or Chris Carson?
Carson.
Or neither, you can say.
Neither is probably the option, but if you had to pick one, I'd still say Carson.
Okay, I have Carson at 39. I do have him ranked higher. Coe, which one would you have to play, gun to your head?
Yeah, I would say Carson as well. And I don't know why we keep discounting. This is not one word, but I don't know why we keep discounting Carson. Carson was a really good running back last year before, I know small sample size, before he got hurt. But I mean, look at his athletic profile. The guy's an absolute animal. Give me Carson.
Sick one-word answer, but we'll let it go. Garion, Crowell or Powell?
Crowell.
James?
Crowell.
I'll say Powell on this one.
I'll just take the volume.
Okay. They both had 10 carries.
That's true.
Some
were louder carries.
This is true. Would you play Riddick, Blunt, who's dealing with a knee injury but will probably play, or Garion Johnson? I'm on Team Riddick with this.
Can I take neither?
Is
this a neither option?
Yeah, you can take a neither.
I think in your best case scenario, you're not starting a Lions running back this week. That would be my hope. But I guess Garion Johnson. I don't know, but you're probably right. Riddick might be the closest one to double digits, and probably most of those will be in the passing game.
Go.
49ers at home. Give me Riddick. Lions playing from behind.
Okay. Rex Burkhead, Sony Michel, or James White? I'm playing Sex Rex. He was so close to a huge game last week.
Yeah, I mean, there was that one play where he had the wheel route, he was wide open, Brady missed him. If he catches that, no one's talking about the disappointment that is Rex Burkhead.
He had 18 carries.
Yeah, he was completely fine. Everything that we thought was going to happen, just James White was the third receiver. Maybe even the second receiver, which is cool. They can both be viable, and I think they are. But I take Burkhead between the two.
James?
I'm going to go completely disagree. I'm going to say because Jaguars playing at home, with that ferocious defense, you got to throw into it, man. And if that's the case, it's going to be James White for me.
We saw this last year. I went back and I watched the game, the Jags-Patriots game from last year in the playoffs. And obviously, that's not going to be the same. But it was Dion Lewis who was just on the field the entire time. Because I assumed it's kind of the same thing that James White just would have been like dump off, dump off, dump off.
But Lewis was that. That's the reason they loved Lewis. He could do it all.
But Burkhead can do that too.
No, and I understand that. And I agree. I think, again, Burkhead, we can't discount how good he is as a wide receiver just because James White is an amazing wide receiver as a running back.
Against Denver in that attacking defense, Rocket Richard or Marshawn Lynch?
It's probably still Lynch.
It's
If you wanna buy into the he was sick and that's the only reason he stopped getting all these carries, he was up to like 11 carries in the first quarter. So it's Lynch.
I mean, I have Lynch ranked higher as well.
But I think Richard is again, Denver cannot cover the middle of the field, and their cornerbacks funnel to the middle. So tight ends and running backs, super viable. Jared Cook.
All right.
Jared Cook.
Last one, James. Jamal Williams or Ty Montgomery?
Wow. We're going bottom of the barrel here. I'll go Williams. I don't think there's a clear path for workload for Ty Montgomery.
All right. You know what, Garrett, I'll give you one last one. Freeman or Coleman?
I think it's still Freeman. Again, unless something definitive comes out about an injury. I'm going to still take Freeman.
Co, would you side with Freeman as well?
No, I'm probably going to go Coleman. I don't know. Freeman, to me, has had a lot of wear and tear over the last couple of years. He's gotten a pretty big workload for a pretty small guy. Meanwhile, Coleman, I think, just looks fresher to me. He just looks like, he's got a little bit of juice. I know the yards per carry crowd is not going to agree with me on that one. But that being said, if he gets extended work, I do think he could break one big one.
All right. James, we'll let you get out of here. Tell us again where we can watch you before Gary and I continue on with the rest of the rankings.
DirecTV. You can find me on Twitter as well. I do a pretty good job, or at least I try to, of answering fan questions and stuff like that. Plus, again, my focus is on next-gen stats, so kind of advanced analytics when we talk about football. And I promise you, if you follow me on Twitter, you get some interesting stuff, although you get some of my bad takes too, so I do apologize for that. But I do like to mix in some advanced analytics. I like to mix in some GIFs. I'll mix in a couple of Cal football and UFC takes as well. So if you're into those things, go ahead and follow me on Twitter at James D. Coe. Otherwise, if you're stateside, DirecTV, channel 704, every single Sunday, 1 hour before kick, all the way till 5 p.m. West Coast time, 8 Eastern, and we'll get you all set in fantasy, man.
What do you think was the coolest or one of the coolest next-gen stats that you found from this week?
I think part of it is, air yards, because for me, air yards is highly indicative. It's just as important to me. It's a volume stat, right? So it's how many yards the ball is traveling in the air to a receiver, right? So it's a volume stat. And there are a lot of Josh Herzmeyer, who does Frisco Josh on Twitter, has a website called airyards.com. And he's written a lot of articles and stuff talking about how air yards is just as predictive as targets in terms of trying to predict wide receiver value. And I would 100% agree with that. So if you're looking at that metric, I know when you look at the game, we're talking about the Raiders-Rams game, you're saying, it's no longer Robert Woods as the lead wide receiver. It's all about Brandon Cooks. And the funny thing for me is that Brandon Cooks Robert Woods actually still led the Rams in terms of air yards. So his time will come, man. I think they still trust him, especially deep downfield, because they love running play action and throwing to him deep. So I would say don't freak out on Robert Woods yet. And that's the one takeaway, one of the big takeaways that I would have. Another one is, man, I've been telling you, I really feel some kind of way about Austin Eckler. And we've got this next-gen stat called yards gained after close, which is how many yards you pick up after a defender closes to within 1 yard. And to me, Eckler was one of the best in that department last year. He's one of the best in that department this year. And he is an explosive athlete. You talk about him being all over the field. Do you realize last year, 18% of his snaps came out wide as a out wide receiver, not in the slot, out wide. And it's because he's got 4.4 speed outside, and he's got great wiggle to his game. He's got great strength as well. He's got good hands. Ken Wisenhunt will find a way to get this guy the ball. He's an absolute must-add in all formats, 12 teams or greater. And I think he's actually worthy of flex consideration each and every week in PPR because, again, I'm projecting him to have about 10 to 15 touches each and every week.
All right, thanks, James. Garion, let's move to wide receivers. The guys that I have as not playing this week: Alshon Jeffrey, Deshaun Jackson with a concussion, Curtis Samuel with his heart condition, Doug Baldwin, all obviously out, and Jermaine Kearse with his abdominal. Marquise Goodwin, Will Fuller, and Devontae Parker I have as if they are playing. That's how the rankings will work. Number 1, Antonio Brown, DeAndre Hopkins, OBJ, Keenan Allen, Michael Thomas, Julio Jones, AJ Green, Tyreek Hill, Stefon Diggs, and Mike Evans. Number 11 is going to be Adam Thielen, Jarvis Landry, Devontae Adams, Emmanuel Sanders over Demaryius Thomas, by the way, T.Y. Hilton, Juju Smith-Schuster, Larry Fitzgerald, Demaryius Thomas at 18, Corey Davis at 19, and Devin Funchess. I would guess that the two that you have the most problems with in here are probably Corey Davis and Devin Funchess at 19 and 20.
It's interesting to see their names there.
Well, Corey Davis had 13 targets last week. If it's Gabbert, that sucks, but that's a lot of volume. And now, no Delaney Walker?
I mean, you'd have to assume the volume share is going to be the same. The quality of target and where they are on the field might be a little bit different.
Sure.
I mean, again, you can't really pull anything from that game, but if we go back throughout the course of Gabbert's career, I mean, even when he had the slightest bit of success with the 49ers, it was generally as a running quarterback. Like, he's not exactly someone who hunkers down in the pocket and finds receivers 4 or 5 seconds after the snap.
Now, what do you think is the difference here? Like, going into the season, did you like Corey Davis?
Yes, I will say I'm relatively anti Marcus Mariota.
Now, I was going to say,
but I think
you have once called him the worst quarterback in football.
I mean, that's hyperbole, but there's a significant improvement between Marcus Mariota and between Blaine Gabbert. Yeah, it's fine. Again, you have to kind of look at this, and if I have a problem with one of these guys, I have to look at who's next on the list, and you start going through it.
Like Funchess without Olsen. That makes sense, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Against Atlanta, and now they're banged up on defense?
Specifically in the middle of the field where Funchess can do some damage. I think, too, that, Cooper Kupp scored the touchdown. I really think that's going to be capricious. Any one of those 3 guys.
Okay, so the top 20 are fine. You're playing those guys, is basically what you're saying.
Yeah.
We can argue about the order of the guys at the back end, but like there's no one above
really
that really,
yeah.
It's not like,
Both Corey Davis and Devin Funchess are top 25 receivers. The fact you have them inside the top 20 doesn't really matter.
I worry about Michael Thomas a little bit this week. You're never going to bench Michael Thomas?
So is the worry that Denzel Ward is going to shadow him? Because I know there's a lot of that talk. Or is the worry that...
If Denzel Ward shadows him, he did a pretty decent job on Antonio Brown.
He did a very good job.
Now, was that weather-related? Now that
possibly.
There's going to be excellent conditions
also, it might
have
been Ben-related, as Ben cannot play on the road.
He hurt his elbow, though.
Yeah,
he has elbow problems.
3 years ago he hurt his elbow? Or
this week.
This
It
week
came out today. He hurt his elbow. He'll play, but he hurt his elbow.
Oh, he's going to power through.
It's a bit wonky. He was playing too much tennis in the offseason.
But as I said about Juju going into that game, it's not as if the Browns don't have a very, very good slot cornerback anyway. Bodie Calhoun is fantastic. He was fantastic last season. And sure, Juju had that one 70-yard reception where he got all of his yardage, but aside from that, he was pretty quiet in that game. Now, that could be, once again, a product of the Steelers just not being a team you can trust on the road, aside from Antonio Brown and Steelers RB. But, yeah, I think they're fine. But Michael Thomas is, you're not going to sit him.
No, you're not going to sit him.
But he's probably not going to have 18 targets again. So
this is true.
These are the things you have to work through.
And Landry is so much higher because I assume Lattimore, who did not look great last week against Mike Evans, will probably shadow Josh Gordon.
He'd have to.
Who's now a starter, although he started last week.
So he's not going to start. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, look.
I would guess that's going to be the case.
The worry with Jarvis, the only real concern we had, aside from the obvious touchdown normalization, which is still definitely on the table, but it was, okay, new offense. Is he going to have the same target share that he had in Miami? And he goes against 38% of the targets. Sure, I guess. Probably, again, not going to see 15 targets this week, but you'd have to think the Saints just look horrendous.
Yeah, and they'll look better this week.
They'll look better, but I think that I wouldn't even go so far as to say that the version of the Saints defense we saw on Sunday is closer, or this year's version is going to look closer to that than they looked in 2017, but they're not going to be that 2017 defense again. That was just strange. So,
are you good with the Colonel, Mandy Sanders, over DT?
Yeah, I mean, I think both are fine.
Yeah, both are good plays.
And that's the thing. You go back it's hard with Emmanuel Sanders because he didn't play all of 2008 or 17, but you go back to 2016, I think DT's average stat line the last 2 seasons has been 80 receptions, about 1,000 yards, and 5 touchdowns. Emmanuel Sanders' 2016 season was 79 catches, 1,016 yards, and 5 touchdowns. They're both just super floor plays. And Case Keenum looks like he's a bit of a gunslinger. We kind of knew that already.
Hey, listen, coming into the season, I had them both ranked inside the top 30, and it was just because, look, Case Keenum is substantially better than anyone they ran out last year.
And we're still in the exact
I don't even know how
same
good Case
situation.
Keenum is, but
Yeah,
just
but we're
substantially better than Paxton Lynch.
We're in the
that's a hot
exact
take
same
for me.
situation we've been in the last 3 seasons too, where and we saw Keenum thrive in a situation that was a little bit more complex than this, where he had McKinnon as a legitimate pass-catching running back on the field for a lot of downs, and Kyle Rudolph was a very reliable tight end in general, but specifically red zone threat. Who else are you throwing to on the Broncos? Maybe Devontae Booker when he's on the field a quarter of the time.
Cortland Sutton, I suppose.
He's all right, but
Jake Butt.
Yeah, maybe Jake Butt. Maybe Jake Butt emerges as a Kyle Rudolph-esque tight end.
Is Jeff Heuerman still on the team? He's on a team.
Your
I know
guess
that.
is as good as mine. Yeah, I got no problem with that.
21-30. Cooper Kupp, like you mentioned, comes in at number 21. Then it's Randall Cobb. I guess I'm not really sweating too much this Aaron Rodgers potential knee injury. He was fine, although Cobb did a lot of the work on that long touchdown.
He says he's going to play. But even if you discount the 75-yard touchdown, he still got 10 targets in that game. Like,
yeah,
we saw this last season. Devontae Adams doesn't need Rodgers to thrive, but Randall Cobb does need Aaron Rodgers to thrive. As long as he's got him, it's fine.
All right, after that, Brandon Marshall, Little Quincy Enunwa, number 24. I'm having some fun with that one. Brendan Cooks, Nelson Aguilar, Pierre Garçon, lucky Pierre Garçon, Michael Crabtree, Chris Hogan, Marvin Jones. Normally, I would not panic on the Chris Hogan thing, but just I don't like this matchup against the Jags.
That's fair.
Once we get back to week 3, everything will be fine, and Chris Hogan will be good again. Someone mentioned we can't call him Chris Hollywood Hogan anymore unless we say it's Chris Hollywood Florida Hogan, because he's not the good Hollywood right now.
That's fair.
But there was nothing wrong with him last week. They just decided, you know what? You take out Chris Hogan, we'll use everyone else.
He played a bunch of snaps. He played the most snaps of any of their wide receivers. And look, they're lining up in a lot of 2 wide receiver, 1 tight end, 2 back settings. And that second back is a fullback a lot of the time. So really, and this is the reason that like Philip Dorsett is strangely relevant now, just because there's only so many options that Brady has to throw to in every single place. If you're going to toss resources at Gronk, if you're going to toss resources at Chris Hogan, sure, these guys are viable all of a sudden because Tom Brady's attached to them. I would say I have a problem with, I don't even have a problem with Quincy. I think Quincy's
Little Quincy.
Maybe a little too high at 24.
Yes, Little Quincy with a big target share.
Brandon Marshall, I'm still...
Revenge game, Garion.
I just don't know.
He had a revenge game last week against Denver. Looked great. Revenge game against Chicago.
Did he look great or did he score a touchdown? Because those are 2 different things.
He got a bunch of targets, and he was
got
the clear wide receiver 1 after Baldwin left the game.
He got
And he
6
ended up on the
targets.
primary coverage against Chris Harris and still looked pretty good.
That's fair. I just, you go back through that game, only 1 receiver actually played more than 60% of the snaps.
Revenge game.
And it was Lockett.
Garion.
I just...
Revenge game.
Maybe it's going to take 2 weeks before I buy into the Brandon Marshall thing. I understand that someone's got to get these targets, and it's not going to be freaking Will Disley again.
And it's not going to be my main man, Doug Baldwin, who's dead.
Yeah, is dead. That's a problem. For me, none of their receivers are inside the top 30. That's just how I look at the situation.
They're going to throw enough that Russell Wilson is going to make someone a top 30 receiver. And I think that guy's going to be Brandon Marshall.
Fair. And look, maybe it's for the best that you take a stance on one of these guys as opposed to me just fence sitting and saying, but
listen, Jake was in on Lockett. He was in on both of them when we talked on the waiver wire show. I just think that if Lockett is sort of like
he's a home run hitter.
He's the homeless person's Tyreek Hill.
Yes.
So if you're going to tell me that they do advance the ball far enough that they're within like 20 yards, they're probably going to be thrown to your main man, the Disleys, or they're going to be passing to Brandon Marshall.
I guess. I just, Marshall, the last time I saw him, looked dead. He looked better.
He did look better. Like I thought he was undraftable coming into the year. He kind of impressed me on Sunday.
I still wouldn't have him as a wide receiver too. I think with Marshall, you're still looking at, he has to score a touchdown. I think he's going to be someone who has a low catch radius. He's going to have a low catch expectancy. If he gets, let's say he gets 11 targets, I'm going to say he catches 5. Like that's the kind of receiver that Brandon Marshall is going to be. And sure, he might be the red zone threat, especially considering Will Disley is apparently the other red zone threat. But yeah, I think this is a worse version of what the Rams are going through right now. But at least for the Rams, it's all these guys could be viable. We just pick the most viable guy. I think one Seattle guy is going to be viable every single week. So maybe if I'm in a situation where I'm going for pure ceiling, I could lean with where Jake's going and just say lock it. But I'm not pumped about any of these guys.
Aguilar, Garcon. This is assuming that Marquise Goodwin is playing, but it's probably going to be banged up. Maybe Dante Pettis is the better play here.
Probably has the higher ceiling, but I think Garcon's worthy of being a top 30 guy.
And Slay looks like he is going to play. At least that's what he tweeted out. So
well, it was only a concussion, and he was cleared to come back on the
tell
field.
the truth.
They apparently did not.
But I would assume Slay's on Goodwin anyway. Unless Goodwin's like so hobbled he can't do anything, then he takes out Garcon, and then Dante Pettis is the better play. I don't love it. This is going to be a wait and see type thing. Like, how healthy is Goodwin? How healthy is Slay? How is this going to work out? Like, I don't know yet.
But
So
I think
I'm just making a rank.
they're all in good spots, though. Like, I think we assume that San Francisco is going to have a very high implied team total for this week. Even I don't know at what point we get concerned, because I was sort of the mindset with Jimmy in this entire offense, like back when even McKinnon was in play, that just getting to the red zone was a good sign. As long as you're getting to the red zone, at some point you'll figure it out.
Okay, Atlanta.
That's what I was saying. Even though Atlanta spits in the face of this philosophy, but like, are they kind of like Atlanta Junior? Like, can they just not score in the red zone?
Maybe.
Is this something we should be more concerned about? Because I was saying, like, look, all these guys will have red zone targets coming out their ass, but I don't know. Jimmy might suck in the red zone. We're only 6 games in.
We'll see. That's a wait and see scenario.
They got there 4 more times against the Vikings. They moved the ball against the NFC's, arguably the NFC's best defense. They just couldn't do anything with it.
All right.
So again, could be good, could be bad.
Marvin Jones comes in at number 30. I still have him the highest ranked of the Lions receivers. I have it Kenny Stills at 31. And then Kenny Golladay. Did I even rank?
Golden Tate at
33. Kenny Golladay at number 40. Like, I'm throwing my hands up in the air here. I think that most talent might be Kenny Golladay, Babytron, and he looked the best on Monday night. But, like, how much of that was the Jets maybe taking away Marvin Jones? Maybe it was they were down by so much at some point they were like, screw it. We'll just throw to Kenny Golladay.
That's the thing. It's hard to take much from a game script where the offense really only scored 10 points. And even 3 of those 10 points were when an interception was thrown, and Golladay, who also looked like their best defender, forced a fumble. So I don't know what to make of this. There are a couple teams, the Lions and the Rams being the most prolific of these teams.
All right, rank the Rams receivers for me.
This week?
This week.
I think you're right. I think it's Kupp.
Kupp, Cooks, Woods.
Yeah.
Should I be so? I have Woods at number 48, but I feel like when you're doing a ranking,
you have to. If you have 2 of them,
inside the top 30, the other one needs to be lower.
But look, they are at the very least. I'll say this about the Rams: like, they are sort of a hybrid situation of the Lions and the Broncos, where at least we know what they're doing in the sense that for every single offensive play they ran, or 61 of the 63 offensive plays they ran, they were 3 wide receiver sets. Like, all 3 of these guys are going to play their fair share of snaps, probably the exact same amount of snaps. McVay loves running 3 wide receiver sets. They even led the NFL last season in most rushing attempts out of 3 wide receiver formations. Like, they are stuck to this philosophy.
Can I admit something?
Sure.
I like that on the Monday Night Football broadcast. They told me who was always on the field.
I like that too.
I really liked it.
I was a simpleton about that.
I didn't have to like squint and like look around, like, I can't see that number. Who is that? What tight end is that?
I loved how they told you even like the defensive linemen who were in there. I thought it was really nice. Anyway, but they're sort of like Denver in the sense that they don't have any tertiary players that are wasting targets on. There's no Insta-Rams, you know what I mean?
I mean, Eleanor Higbee, you got no love? He was like wide open in the end zone like 8 times.
Doesn't matter. Didn't see a target. Played 60 snaps. Didn't see a target. I thought Gerald Everett might play an impact in the red zone. Dude only played 5 snaps. Malcolm Brown was the only non-Big 3 wide receiver Todd Gurley player to actually get a target. So at the very least in Robert Woods' defense, in the defense of people who say that Robert Woods is a viable top 3, top 36 wide receiver.
He could be some weeks.
He could be because they don't waste targets on players who aren't fantasy viable. They are very, very good to fantasy owners in that one particular sense.
I mean, he, as Co talked about, the air yards for Robert Woods. And I'm confused about how air yards work sometimes. Because, like, Brendan Cooks drew 2 deep pass interference penalties. Do those count?
I don't think so, because I think
that happens to Brandon Cooks a lot, by the way. That's like his move.
There was the 50-yard one. I know that's one of his greatest values, which sucks as fantasy owners.
Yeah.
But I thought Cooks looked good. Although, like I said,
there's gonna get to a point, by the way, in fantasy where people bitch and moan out, no, there should be fantasy points.
No, I don't want that.
It's gonna happen. Like, best ball is the version of the whiny fucking fantasy guy.
Yes.
Well, I don't know who to start every week. I difference. Like, that's all it is.
Yeah.
You know, I can do 1,000 of these drafts. Oh, everybody, I'm the smartest. Like, fuck off.
Yeah. Best ball. It's fun to have a couple best balls.
I
but it's
agree.
not
Listen,
real
best ball's
fantasy.
not fun, but like it's so weird. Like
It is-
part of the fun of fantasy is being right and being wrong, taking a stance.
I
And
like
I'm like,
that.
listen, you're gonna be wrong. It's gonna happen. Just fucking deal with it.
Yeah. But I thought not Woods. I thought that Cooks had a really good matchup in that game. I mean, Garion Conley is essentially a rookie. He played 2 games last season. He missed all of the preseason with injury. Like, there were times where Cooks was just clearly in the best matchup. So I think that in that particular sense, I think looking at cornerback data and seeing which one of these 3 wide receivers has the best matchup is going to be something that you should probably look into, and I think it'll tell us a lot about who gets some of the target share here.
All right, 31-40. Kenny Stills to pay them bills. 2 T's in the game, but I have Devontae Parker ranked, so I bumped him down a little bit just because I have him playing. If not, I would bump him up.
They are the anti-Rams.
Jamison Crowder, Golden Tate, Josh Gordon, Allen Robinson, Amari Cooper, John Brown, Chris Godwin, no Deshaun Jackson. I could even go higher on Godwin. I liked Brown and Godwin this week. Mike Williams, Kenny Golladay. That rolls into Robbie Andercust, Cole Beasley, D.D. Westbrook, Keelan Cole. Throwing up my hands on that one. Lockett, Ryan Grant, Marquise Goodwin, Robert Woods, Will Fuller, Ted Ginn Jr. So from that 20 and everyone else below, you can find on DK Playbook or in the description of this video, the entire rankings. They might be updated by the time you're watching or listening to this right now. You got a problem with any of those?
Nothing really. I mean, Stills kind of has to be at 31 just because he might not have a high target share in this offense, but it seems like he's going to get a majority of the high leverage targets.
Agreed.
Which is important.
That's still a start, though. Like, anyone 36 and above is a start.
I get that. My only concern again with Stills is that it's sort of like the
He may not
Jay
have
Ajayi
enough
thing.
money to pay the bills.
You would hope he has enough money.
He has
pay
to
the
score a
bills.
touchdown.
He has to score a touchdown, and the problem is, like I said, they're the anti-Rams. They have so many. I don't even want to call them weapons. That would be
That'd be too generous.
That'd be a little too generous. But they have enough people who line up at skill positions where they just dilute from each other. Like, Jakeem Grant played 12 snaps as a receiver and somehow saw 5 targets. That's ridiculous. Gesicki's in the mix.
He's not really in the mix.
But he's on the field. They run 2 tight end sets sometimes, so Durham Smythe is on the field. They're using Kenyon Drake in the passing game.
I love that you're a Dolphins fan because I don't know who Durham Smythe is.
He also went to Notre Dame.
Oh.
He's a great tight end.
He's a lovely player.
Lovely player. But they even lined up Albert Wilson in the backfield, and he took a handoff or 2. Like,
I remember when they said they were going to do that. They actually did that?
They actually did that.
I'm not going to lie to you. Watch very limited amounts of the 20-hour
if you're
Titans
in a bar,
Dolphins game.
You know how we watch in a bar.
Yeah, but I had my computer and my iPad up at the same time.
That's fair, but I'm just saying, like, you turn your head in a bar when something interesting happens. So anytime you turned your head to watch that game, you were like, oh, it's not on. So it's kind of hard to watch a game like that. Was a crazy fourth quarter. It was 10-3 going into the fourth, and then there was like back-to-back kickoff returns for touchdowns. It was great. So yeah, I think for me, I would rather start Crowder just 'cause I think the volume share is going to be higher. I think even Josh Gordon. Like, so you're worried he only got the 1 catch? I mean,
I'm worried about that. I mean,
are you just worried about Jarvis? Like, is he?
No, I'm
is he too much of a black hole of targets?
Listen, I didn't think that the Browns' offense looked super duper impressive. I'm not going to lie to you.
Yeah, but the Saints look terrible too.
Yeah, I think they're going to be better. If I had to bet on one thing being sustainable, is the Saints defense going to be that bad, or is Cleveland's offense going to be pretty mediocre? I'd say it's probably going to be the Browns' offense being pretty mediocre. I think that Marshawn Lattimore is a better player than he looked like last week. I think the pass rush will come back. It's not like Pittsburgh wasn't just in the backfield the entire time last week. Like, and we were watching the game with Paul, and Tyrod was doing these like classic Tyrod stuff. It's like, oh, he sees a modicum of pressure, just throws it away.
It's true. Actually, you're going to hate me for this. Should have been pointed out in the running backs. You didn't rank Duke Johnson.
I did.
Where is
Duke
he?
Johnson.
Oh, I'm looking.
Duke is capitalized. I think he's like 41.
Oh, there it is. I was looking for the D at the start. Fair enough. I like Duke
Looking
Johnson
for
this
the
week.
D. Classic Garion.
There it is. But yeah, I think they're going to be down. They're going to be throwing a lot.
Sure. And then,
I just think Gordon, if you're asking me who has more targets at the end of the week, Josh Gordon or Kenny Stills, I think I would very easily say Gordon has more targets.
I think that there is a chance that Gordon ends up 4th in targets.
Really?
On this team. This week.
Behind
Njoku, behind Duke Johnson, and behind Jarvis Landry.
Okay, that's fair.
And I just think it's a bad matchup for you. Like, why would you throw at Marshawn Lattimore if you don't have to?
It's true.
Especially when you're Tyrod and all you want to do is throw the ball like 5 yards. Or throw it away.
It's fair. I just...
Or run.
That entire Dolphin offense just detracts from itself. Like, I don't necessarily think.
Sure,
they're
but
one of
I
the
mean,
worst
Stills
offenses
has
in the
looked
league,
good,
but-
and there's a chance that even if Devontae Parker plays, maybe he's not close to 100%.
I mean, he might also just be bad.
That's true,
also
too.
on the table. So,
Um,
but Stills, even last season, I think Stills had 2, 3 red zone looks. Like the fact that he got that look inside the 10. Granted, that says a lot about the little to no height of every Dolphins receiver who's not Devontae Parker, but he's not really a red zone threat either. So that red zone touchdown seemed kind of strange.
Dede or Keelan? I like Dede.
Yeah, DD.
I think it's a safer floor.
Yeah, and look, it's not like he doesn't
Cole's
have.
going to be
it's-
the deep threat. If he hits,
yeah,
he hits.
But it's not like DD doesn't have ceiling either. Like there was a time last season when we were all drooling about him. So I think either is fine. Neither's a great option. Flex at best. But,
If you have to start one Cowboys receiver, Cole Beasley. The Bees.
yeah, I would go floor there because
Yeah.
I don't think they're a high ceiling offense. So
Anyone else? The Bruce of Ellington if Fuller sits again. I played him in DraftKings last week. It worked.
he's fine. I mean, maybe John Ross is weird. Like I know he caught the touchdown.
John Ross got a 3-yard touchdown. How is that a thing?
Yeah, I don't know, but
Isn't that Tyler Eifert's territory?
You would think. I guess he was on a snap count, so maybe he wasn't on the field for that particular play. I'd have to go back and watch. But maybe the Bengals get to a situation where they just can't run the ball against the Ravens and they go to the air. But
Sure.
It's a tough matchup, though. So I'm fine with him being outside the top 50.
Quarterbacks not playing. I have Marcus Mariota and Carson Wentz. That Mariota stuff is clearly still up in the air. Probably playing. I have Aaron Rodgers and Ben Roethlisberger. I believe that they're probably going to play. Mariota might play for all we know. But right now I have Yo Gabba Gabbert ranked in these rankings. Number 1, I have Drew Brees. I don't feel good about it. And I originally, when I did these, I ranked Patrick Mahomes number 1.
Ooh.
And then I looked at it, I was like, that's too much hot fire. That's too much fire.
Yeah.
So Breeze, Mahomes, Rivers, Ben, even with the elbow. Cam Newton, who historically does not play well against Atlanta, by the way. Deshaun Watson, I ain't scared. Alex Smith, Russell Wilson, Tom Brady, and Aaron Rodgers. The Aaron Rodgers thing at 10 is, if you have Aaron Rodgers, you're probably still going to play him. I know you could probably pick up Alex Smith to play over him if you wanted to.
But you could probably avoid him in DFS if you really wanted to.
That's sort of the thing. Like, you're probably not going to do the Smith over Rodgers thing, even if Smith is available, because you have Aaron Rodgers. But he's banged up. He's playing the Vikings. I just don't love it. It's like Brady against the Jags. It could be a really great game. But
And that's the thing. That's kind of the best case. Not the best case scenario, but the best reason to maybe fade Aaron Rodgers here, because the one reason to play Rodgers, aside from the fact he's Aaron Rodgers, is, he's a pivot play. He's a contrarian play. So is Brady. So I'd rather just play the guy who I think is actually 100% and has 2 knees. So if your argument is you can get low ownership variance on Rodgers, you can get low ownership variance on Brady. So just do that.
I'll talk about this tomorrow with Rick on the DraftKings show. I think I may only take players from that Kansas City-Pittsburgh game. I think that game's going to be like 65-64.
There's a very good chance.
Maybe that's a bit high.
How do you feel about Kareem Hunt's usage inside the red zone? Do we feel like, is that something you're worried about going forward? Because I know 2 of those touchdowns were just little flips.
I mean, if that's so sustainable, they can do that every time and score touchdowns.
It's real fast.
Then they will. But no, I'm fine with Kareem Hunt. He played a ton of snaps. I wasn't really concerned about
Not
Spencer
even
Ware.
more about Kareem Hunt. Just about
I just
Patrick
think
Mahomes
that
even.
you give a look to one team, then you give a look to another team. Like, it's going to be different week to week. And after 5 weeks, it might be too late to do anything about it in terms of fantasy. But like, it's hard to be like, people are making such bold proclamations after seeing one game.
Oh, sure.
Like, it's so outrageous. But like, yeah, that concerns me. There's stuff that concerns me, but I'm not just going to say, well, no, that's wrong. What I thought for 9 months is wrong. Now this is right. And then what do you want me to come back next week and say, oh no, I was wrong last week. I was right all along. Now I was just right. Not only was I wrong about everything, I was actually right about everything.
Yeah, I've been wrong
too.
twice, but right once. So whatever, it's fine. I just more meant with Mahomes being at 2, like, he only completed 15 passes.
Yeah, but they're all going to be for 89 yards and touchdowns.
Look, I can't argue the fact that he probably has the most varied and skilled skill position grouping in the NFL, and that can't be discounted. He's in quarterback heaven. Andy Reid is also a super good offensive coach.
And Joe Hayden's probably not going to play. Not that I love Joe Hayden, but
it
it's just a
detracts from
starter
their defense,
that they
sure.
don't have.
Yeah.
And I think that Pittsburgh,
Yeah.
with Ben ranked at number 4 here, which is probably...
What's the total for this game? I'm sure you've seen it. Like 50, if I had to guess, 52 and a half.
I actually haven't looked at it yet. I think it is over 50. I would assume if it's not over 50, I'm going to bet it right now.
Bet it early because it'll get over 50.
I just think that both these offenses score. And if
Yeah.
both these offenses score, there's going to be a ton of passing yards, there's going to be a ton of touchdowns, points, receptions, whatever to go around. I think that's fine. I'm willing to take that bet on both these quarterbacks this week.
That's fair. I can back that up.
11 to 20, I got Case Keenum at number 11. I like Case Keenum this week.
Gunslinger, good receivers.
Kirk, Andrew Luck, Garoppolo, Trubisky, Tyrod, Foles, Dak against the Giants, Goff, Matt Stafford. I didn't love to see the knee injury with Stafford, but I think he's going to be throwing a ton.
Yeah, but I think that was at least... It seemed like he almost got cleated. It wasn't so much like...
I wasn't sure what was going on with him, but he kept playing.
Then he had the wind taken out of him. He had a weird game.
Yeah, so maybe give him a week. He's a bit healthier.
Yeah.
And good rebound spot for Stafford.
I mean, I have Jimmy in a 14-man league, so I guess this question doesn't really matter because I'm going to start Jimmy this week. It is your league. I mean, I think Jimmy's... I was going to say he's a top 12 quarterback this week, but at the same time...
52 and a half.
I was exactly right. Amazing. But who am I taking out of your top 13 to put Jimmy higher?
That's the whole thing. Like, it's either an elite quarterback with a bad matchup, or it's someone with a better matchup than Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah.
Like, I would say that even though the Lions looked awful, Kirk Cousins against Green Bay is a better matchup. Plus, that offense can score to keep up, too.
I 100% agree. So, and especially, too, if Jimmy is down his quote-unquote top target, like I know Marquise Goodwin
You mean George Kittle? Me Timbers? And listen, the big thing that the Jets were able to do, Darnold actually looked quite good. So this is his ranking at 23 is not anything against Sam Darnold. Just I'm not willing to buy all the way in yet. Maybe a bit too hyped. You know, it's a short week for him playing those pesky Dolphins, Garion. Your pesky Dolphins.
Finally are in the next century of NFL football, though, where they finally realized, hey, we might need someone on the second level who can cover the slot. So thank God for Minka Fitzpatrick, who looked really good in that game. But no, Darnold looked good.
Darnold did look good. But
he looked athletic. He looked like he had a strong arm. And really, the one mistake he made, I think we all knew it was going to happen as soon as he released that ball. It was like, oh, he's looking back across the field. Okay, we know how this ends. And he seemed to learn from that mistake. So I think he's a great quarterback stream. But like you said...
guys that you can stream this week, Alex Smith is widely available.
Yes.
You can stream Alex Smith. You can stream Keenum. You can stream Trubisky. I like that matchup against Seattle. I think that's just going to be...
It worries me what version of Trubisky we're going to see because...
The very scripted Trubisky?
Scripted Trubisky is great.
Yeah, he's fantastic. So is scripted Derek Carr.
Yeah, it's weird. But both of them, they just became not even just shells of themselves, but they broke down into this just check down. And for at least with Derek Carr, again, that Rams defense time and time again, we noticed
he wasn't checking down. Was it Marcus Peters? He just threw it to?
Yeah, Marcus Peters returned for the touchdown. It was I don't even know who that was. Was that Roby maybe?
I completely.
No, it was a linebacker.
It's just right to him, like right in the numbers. It was a horrible.
I guess he thought they were man. They were zone. So that stuff happens from time to time. But yeah, it's weird because once you get past Jimmy, like I start looking at this list.
Yeah, I don't
there's
love
not
it
a lot
after
of
Jimmy.
names I'm inspired by. And they might have decent matchups, but again, I think you're at a place in week 2 where you're probably not going to have to stream a quarterback.
I agree. Unless you had Mariota.
Yeah, and then Alex Smith is clearly your top candidate. And if you do get a situation where it has to be Darnold, that's fine. I think he has a fine week against the Dolphins.
Even if it's Dak, if no one owns him. Like I don't think Dak's in a bad spot here this week.
I just worry about their offense in general. Like I pounded under Cowboys in terms of the win total. Like I just think they're going to be bad.
Josh Allen, we don't know if he's starting yet. It could be Nate the Great again.
Well, I mean,
we'll see.
You want to give him a second chance at that Chargers defense.
Revenge game.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Tight ends. Greg Olsen and Delaney Walker are presumably out for the year. Olsen could come back. Delaney's done for the year.
They're saying they're going to put him on IR, so we'll see.
It's the same foot again. Like
I know.
And he didn't want to play football this year anyway, so we'll see about him.
Dexter in the booth.
Vance McDonald be better than fucking Jason Witten. Vance McDonald, Jermaine Gresham, and Hayden Hurst I all have as out. I have no one questionable right now, actually. So the rankings go Gronk, number 1. Ertz, number 2. Kelsey, number 3. Jordan Reed's healthy is number 4.
Sure. That's fine.
So those are like the 4 must-play guys, and then after that, you can mix these up any way you want to. Burton, Kittle, Doyle, Rudolph, Ingram, David Njoku. At 11, I have Jimmy Graham, who looked awful. Tyler Eifert, Jonnu Smith, who's replacing Delaney Walker in that Titans offense. Ben Watson, Jeff Swaim, Will Disley, Nick Boyle, Ricky Seals-Jones, Ian Thomas, who is replacing Greg Olsen, and Eric Ebron.
I'm trying to figure out where I'm going to put him. One sec.
Who?
Oh, you know.
Oh, yeah. Jared Cook isn't ranked number 1. Worst place!
Jared Cook would be after Kyle Rudolph for me.
You would rank Jared Cook inside your top 10?
I would.
That feels like such a big zero in your lineup.
Look, Jared.
How
Cook,
great has Jared Cook's chalk ever paid off?
You know what's funny?
And you know what's great? Don't worry, with John Gruden, Jared Cook's going to be super consistent this year. He wasn't consistent any of the past 47 years.
Not even saying that. It's so funny that in the week that Ryan Fitzpatrick went off, the Ryan Fitzpatrick of tight ends went off. Because that's Jared Cook. He is either the highest highs or the lowest lows. Much like Ryan Fitzpatrick, the only quarterback in NFL history to throw 6 touchdowns and then throw 6 interceptions in a different game. Jared Cook, with that record-setting Oakland Raider performance last night, is now the leading tight end receiver on a per-game basis for 3 different NFL franchises somehow. Because he has these games. I understand that. But my case here is, if in the preseason you would ask me, Garion, what is one team you're consistently willing to stream tight ends against?
The Giants.
Denver.
Giants.
Denver.
Giants.
Rabbit season. Anyway. Don't do that. That's creepy. Look, Denver's rolling back the exact same defense they had last season in terms of their back 7. They hemorrhaged points to tight ends and running backs last season. Part of that was the filtering with the good cornerback play. They lose Aqib Talib. That's going to happen less often now, but it seemed to go to script against the Seahawks. So I'm going to continue to buy into this. Jared Cook's like 48% owned on Yahoo, so maybe you can't grab him if you lost Delaney or if you lost Greg Olsen, but if you can, I think he's a top 10 tight end this week. And again, it's tight end. It's tight end. Anyone can be a top 10 tight end.
You have fun with Jared Cook. Listen, it's the official stance of the Pat Mayo experience that Jared Cook shall always be ranked number 1 in worst place. It'd be like if I started ranking Mark Ingram.
But there are guest rankings.
There are guest
ranking of him is right after Kyle Rudolph is tight end number 9.
All right, so number 9. Oh my God, Jared Cook, Garion. It's funny because we didn't even have to rank in the
we can't do Mark Ingram, yeah.
No, we don't have to do Mark Ingram yet, but in the guest rankings for wide receiver, I don't rank Kelvin Benjamin or Jordy Nelson because they suck, and there was just no argument on that one. Or Doug Martin at running back, who's also quite terrible.
It's nice for you that they're all in one team now.
I know. They've collected all my least favorite players
That's
onto one team.
That's a very Raiders thing to do, actually.
And they have like my favorite player in the league, Rocket Richard. Team Rocket. It's the way you want to be.
It sucks that he's not an Insta Raider anymore.
I know. They need to get Jameez Alawaluigi back, although he's on Dallas now.
It's quite the name.
Burton, you scared? Because I'm not. Like, if Burton wasn't used in the first quarter of that game, when were they going to use him?
Yeah, there
was kind of the thing. He got written out of the script.
Yeah,
that can happen, but like you said, it's tight end.
Their propensity to use even 3 running back sets does hurt the amount of time they can spend with a tight end on the field. And we know as well that Deion Sims, by Pro Football Focus, one of the best pass blocking and run blocking tight ends in the league last season.
One of the most concussable tight ends in the league.
That is also true, which might play into Trey Burton's favor, but he's going to get the goal line occasionally, like the run dependent goal line snaps. We even saw them try to do the thing where with their formation sets where a defensive coordinator would go, oh, Deion Sims is on the field, they're going to run the football. They tried to take advantage of that by rolling him out sneakily, and he couldn't get the first down, whatever. But that's going to eat in a little bit to the target stuff. But there's this picture going around Twitter right now. I think it's being blown up a little bit too much, but of Trey Burton just being wide open in the back of the end zone and Trubisky just missing him.
That's fine. You know what I like? That he was wide open in the back of the end zone.
It's good.
I'll take that.
It's fine. And look, tight ends, like we said, once you get past those top 4 guys, and Jordan Reed is only in the top 4 when he's healthy, it's super up and down. It's super volatile. So these things are going to happen. But their offense looked leaps and bounds better than it had all of last season. They threw the ball at a higher clip than I think I can remember them seeing at any point last year. That's all good in theory for this guy. So I think it's fine. I think he's still someone who's a top 10 tight end just based on talent alone.
Of the 2 replacements, Ian Thomas or Jonnu Smith, which one would you go with?
It's
I go with
probably Jonnu, just because I think he has a more defined role in this offense.
Jonnu vision.
The Panthers.
That's like a 0.2% reference.
That's a low one. The Panthers apparently are already talking about maybe bringing in like a veteran tight end to the
Jeff
room.
Swaim? Trade for him?
Who knows? But Ian Thomas, like, he's super athletic. I saw him a bit in the preseason. He scored a really nice touchdown in one of those games on a drag route. Like, he's got talent.
Are you saying he is America?
No, I'm saying he's a football player. But look, Carolina, slow-paced offense. They're going to be among the lowest in the league in plays run.
And Cam's going to run the ball 15 times a game.
Cam's going to run it a bunch. We know they consistently, season after season, rank with inside the bottom 5 in terms of pass ratio. So there's just not a lot of volume to go around here. So I think that just my thought process on this would be much like yours, that we just see some of the receivers get more volume because of this, not necessarily a replacement tight end.
And in Tennessee, that Delaney Walker role is so big in the offense. Smith is familiar in the offense, and if Gabbert starts, like, who's the guy standing closest to me? I'll throw to him, maybe, if I can.
Yeah, which is again why I
complete
love Deion Lewis in that game. I think Deion Lewis could get like 10 targets.
Let's close this out with DSTs. I have the Chargers at number 1. I'm just going to stream against Buffalo until it doesn't work.
That's fair.
That's going to be my game plan. Chargers, Rams, Bears at Seattle. They're going to get like 12 sacks.
Yep.
Denver against Oakland, Philly, New Orleans, Titans, Ravens on Thursday night, Jacksonville, Houston, and then it's like Cincy, Minnesota, New England.
Here's the
Washington.
fear with Tennessee, and it's the exact situation we just talked about. I'm not saying their defense isn't great, but you could just get a bunch of short fields. You could have the Titans only have the ball for like 24 minutes.
Listen, the only thing that you can really predict when it comes to this stuff is sacks. That's the only thing that's somewhat projectable. What do sacks do? Sacks lead to turnovers. They make bad decisions, which lead to touchdowns. You're playing for upside with a lot of this stuff. And the Titans' offensive line somehow got worse.
Texans offensive line. I know losing Chantrell Henderson shouldn't be such a devastating blow, but here we are. Yep, here we are.
So I'm just gonna listen. Watson could put up 30 points in this game. He could get sacked 8 times.
That's true.
The Patriots don't have a good pass rush.
No.
And they were in the backfield.
Well, they have an okay pass rush.
So do the Titans.
Yeah, they have a better.
They have a better pass rush.
It's just that the Patriots, they rely on scheme more than actual players. You don't know any of the guys' names, but they have a decent pass rush. I'm with you. I'm just saying there's a scenario here where the Titans get Cardinals.
I agree. And then you're in the minus. But I played the Saints last week and they finished with like -8.
Sure.
And I'm going back
to the Lions a couple times.
I'm going back to the Saints against Cleveland this week because you know who's in the backfield against Cleveland every single play? Pittsburgh.
Yeah, it's true. 7 sacks, I think it was. Jeez.
And New Orleans has a better pass rush.
Yeah. That's fair. That's fine.
And they're going to put Cleveland into a position where, I mean, the one takeaway from that Pittsburgh-Cleveland game is, Pittsburgh got up by 14 at one point, but it wasn't for long.
And they stopped scoring
entirely. If New Orleans ain't going to stop scoring, is the thing.
They
don't stop scoring.
James Conner, I think after his 25-yard touchdown, I think he averaged 1.6 yards per carry the rest of the way. They shut down Juju in the second half. And Brown got his because Brown's going to get his, but you're right. Touchdowns, capricious. Turnovers, capricious. Sacks, those are valid.
Somewhat projectable.
So you have to.
And they lead to, it's one thing to say, hey, I don't think this team's going to score points. This defense is going to shut down the other team.
That's a tough way to go.
That's a tough way to go, and we don't know the fantasy points that go along with that. We're trying to project out fantasy points. We want the biggest possible upside from our defense. Pressure on the quarterback is a complete correlation with how many fantasy points are scored for a defense.
In most leagues, it's worth the exact same amount of points. As soon as the opposing team kicks a field goal, it's worth the same amount of points to your defense to get 3 sacks. So you're right. Go after sacks.
Remember when we first started the show? I want to say 6 years ago now, 7 years ago?
We were doing just podcast?
When we were doing just audio.
Yeah.
And we used to do a thing called the worst Twitter question in the world. We might need to bring that back.
Wow.
I might need to get the lightning sound effects. But this week, the worst Twitter question in the world. I forget who it's from, but someone asked me. We've went through some bad questions so far. Do I drop Deshaun Watson and pick up Ryan Fitzpatrick?
Did you tell him yes?
I did.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
If people are going to ask me really, just truly moronic questions.
That's the answer you deserve.
That's what you get.
Wow.
Would you? I guess I'm going to throw it at you. Give me the serious answer.
You know what? I'd have to sit back and think about it for a little bit, but probably not. You know, I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna say definitely don't do that. I'm gonna man up on this one.
You're gonna really.
I'm gonna take a definitive stance on this one.
No more fence sitting from Garion. Ladies' glasses be damned. You're taking Deshaun Watson
I'm taking Deshaun
over
Watson.
Ryan Fitzpatrick for the rest of the season.
You know what?
That's a
Ryan
bold
Fitzpatrick against the Eagles this week. Oh boy, that's a great matchup, first and foremost.
Some people are not playing the Eagles defense because they think that Ryan Fitzpatrick is, maybe it's for their first year playing fantasy. I don't know. We've been down this Ryan Fitzpatrick road. Now, if he...
You never know which version
If he follows script, he's going to throw for 4 more touchdowns this week and then 5 the week after.
Yeah.
They're going to cut Jameis Winston, sign him to like $80 million. He can be the worst quarterback in the league.
What was that contract the Bills... It was like 5 years?
I thought it was 4 for 48. Maybe
yeah, no, I think it was 4 for 48.
But it was like weirdly guaranteed.
He was 5-1 after 6 weeks, and they signed him to that big time contract.
And all the Bills fans were, Fitzmagic.
Oh, you loved Fitzmagic.
You know,
Don't pretend you didn't love Fitzmagic.
I still love Fitzmagic.
Oh, he's great.
I support He is the ultimate just train wreck player to watch in both a good way and a bad way.
It's true. He's better. The NFL is better when Fitzpatrick is somebody's backup.
Completely agree. Because you know he's getting in at some point.
At some point.
And he's going to do some really awesome things and just for a guy that went to Harvard, he makes a lot of stupid decisions.
Well, what was it? Someone said they had a really nice poetic paragraph about him, and one of the lines was he's a contrarian of himself all the time, and he just contradicts himself in that he was a Harvard graduate but still thinks it's a good idea to use his head as a battering ram. It's like, yeah, that's pretty much Ryan Fitzpatrick in a nutshell.
Any sleeper defenses you like?
Sleeper defenses. I mean, I could see streaming, as much as I could, strangely enough, see streaming either quarterback in the Dolphins-Jets game. I could also very much see streaming either defense in the Dolphins-Jets game.
I thought the Jets defense actually looked all right.
Yeah. They've got pieces. Their front four is decent.
I mean, Dallas against the Giants, like I mentioned earlier, like I don't think that Dallas' defense is a complete train wreck, and Eli might be.
Yeah, he didn't look good.
No, it was against the Jags D. What can you really take away from that? But he just might be bad.
Yeah.
But
I also think that's a game that I think is going to have a low total. I could play either side of that game too. I think the Giants have some good players.
Houston against Tennessee, if they are missing both their tackles, is very spicy, just from a sack rate perspective.
Oh, sure. Yeah. No, I think, you have both here. I think Houston makes your top 10.
Yeah, I think they're number 10.
Yeah.
What do you do with Jacksonville against the Patriots? If you own Jacksonville, you're playing them, obviously.
Because
are they an elite play?
No.
They could be.
Defense is so... Again, I think that at the end of the day, will Jacksonville have more than 2.5 sacks? Probably.
Brady gets it out so quickly, though.
But Brady also is one of the quarterbacks... He's one of the smartest quarterbacks in the game in the sense, if he sees a free rusher coming, if he sees 2 guys...
He'll just drop?
He just drops the ground. He'll just take this sack, I'm not getting hurt. So I think there's going to be enough pressure in this game where Jacksonville at least gets 3 sacks. They probably get a turnover, and that's enough. Because here's the alternative to picking up someone else to play aside from Jacksonville defense. Then you have to keep Jacksonville defense because you probably spent like a 10th round draft pick on him. So now you own 2 defenses. Never own 2 defenses.
No, I disagree because I did that this week. I really wanted to play because I drafted Baltimore's defense in a lot of leagues, but if like the Chargers defense like kept kicking around, and a lot of people dropped Chargers defense because they didn't want to play them against the Chiefs. So I picked up Chargers defense, knowing that in week 2 they played the Bills.
Okay, that's fine.
Now I can move along my way.
Maybe if you're projecting towards the next week, I don't hate that too much, but yeah, it's just tough
it depends on your team.
Yeah, in keeper formats it's tough.
My team wasn't very good, so I had room for a second defense.
Spaces,
but I also don't own a second quarterback or a second tight end.
Wait, is that in your league?
No.
Okay, good. Because I'm playing you this week. I don't want to play Chargers D against
my
the
team
Bills.
is terrible.
My team is awesome.
Yeah, I know. I saw.
But it's Andrew cursed. So
it is.
Problems.
Both teams that Tim projected to be to play in the finals are both 1-0 with the 2 highest point totals after 1 week. Maybe it's the year of the cuss.
We'll see.
Although he used up a lot of the Andrew curse. We'll talk about this more on Thursday.
I'm going to trade him James Conner as soon as Le'Veon Bell gets back.
Oh,
that is my prediction for the season.
Excellent news. All right, that'll do it on the Pat Mayo experience. Can't even say my own name.
That's your name.
I'm like that guy that we went to college with who couldn't say his own last name.
Yep.
Yeah, sick mumbles, kid. Garion Thorne, you can follow him on Twitter at Garion Thorne. Check out his work on the DK Playbook. Where else?
Listen to my new podcast, Fantasy on 5. Pat's been on it. Get some of the old rotation guests on there.
Jake's been on it.
Jake's been on a couple times, yeah. So yeah, we do same basic stuff, rankings. It's only twice a week, so we don't get to cover as much as we used to on the rotation, but it's rotation light if you missed that show.
But you're also back on with me now.
Yeah, I'm back on with you. If you're still playing DFS baseball, just me and the Sharps are still out there, but I still write about baseball on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays on the DK Playbook, so check that out.
Cool. Like I said, follow Garion on Twitter @Garion Thorne. Let's get him up more followers than Tim, so you can tell.
Close. I'm within 100.
You can tell Tim he's a laugh riot.
Oh,
because you have
what a goal that will be.
I know. Sunday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern Time, DraftKings YouTube channel. Myself, Garion, and Cust will be taking all your questions, live updates, all that fun stuff. DraftKings show Wednesday, pick show on Thursday. There's also an MMA show on Thursday evening. Then the ownership and adjustment for injury report on Friday. We got you all covered. Remember to follow James Coe on Twitter @JamesDCoe. Check him out on DirecTV. Want to thank him again for coming on. I'm Pat Mayo. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.
That Mayo experience! Experience!